Okay, you ready? Let's do it. You're listening to Chats from a Chair with me, Nick Dempsey, coming to you from my wheelchair. I speak with people who have a great story to tell, portraying the human potential, often in the face of adversity. Check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast and let me know who you think I should have on and have a chat with. Also, don't forget to hit follow on whatever platform you're listening to this. But for now, sit back and enjoy this episode. Coming up in this episode, I speak with former AFL player Max Lynch, who had to retire at the age of just 24 years old after too many head knocks. I chat with him to see where it all started with the first head knock and how all that felt, but then also how it progressed from there, how it affected him on the field, but then also off the field in terms of emotions and relationships that he shares. How it came to the decision of him having to retire from professional sport. We also chat about how he feels today and what he has planned for the future. So stay tuned for all of that coming up. G'day and welcome to another episode of Chats from a Chair. Today I have with me former AFL superstar, Max Lynch. Mate, how you going?
Yeah, good. Superstars is a genuine stretch. But yeah, no, going real well. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Thanks for coming on. It's for those that don't know your story, it's had to retire recently from AFL because of too many head knocks. So obviously something that's become a lot more prevalent in the news, I suppose, over the last few years. So we want to get into a lot of that. But first off, mate, yeah, from my neck of the woods down in Albury.
Yeah,
Yeah, how was it growing up down there?
God's country, mate. I loved it. So no, it's
So
I've always loved going home and see the family. All my family and a few mates are still there. So yeah, I've always loved the place.
And obviously AFL's massive down there, footy. It's I'm up in Gold Coast now. Everyone calls rugby footy, so that's a constant battle for me. Um, but yeah, what was your pathway to getting to the AFL?
I actually grew up playing soccer, so I didn't start playing footy till year 10. Um, yeah, just started playing out in for Jindra, sort of in the Bush League, and then had a year there, but I was probably a foot taller than everyone else that I was playing against, so it probably made me look really good when I probably wasn't. And then came in to play for the Albury Tigers for a year, and then played Murray Bushrangers for a year, and then got drafted. So it was a pretty fast turnaround from. I didn't watch any footy or anything like that growing up. Um, so yeah, it was a very fast turnaround from growing up in Jindra and then going to Albury and then being in the big smoke and being told to be an adult when I'm still feel like I'm a kid. So it was a pretty sharp turnaround, but it was a really good experience.
Yeah, so you're the type of guy we hate. Just we're out from juniors wanting to play AFL, and you just swoop in at about what 17, 18, just
Yeah,
go
pretty
straight to
much.
the
Yeah, always had the traits as they like to call it. So always tall. Suppose I could use both sides. Not too bad for a big guy, and I changed along the years. I was quite a an angry teenager. I would have. It's sort of how to explain it. So, but then yeah, I don't know what sort of changed, but then I sort of mellowed out a bit more, and I really had that white line fever type when I was in the 18s. Probably because I was bigger than everyone, and then when I got drafted, then I was small and playing against men. So if I got too angry, then they'd smoke me.
put you in your place a little easier.
Pretty much, yeah. And then I was the little baby running around, and they just do whatever they want.
Yeah, a bit of a turn. But what's the AFL lifestyle like? Like when you're in that club and from the outside, it seems awesome. What
Yeah,
is it like?
I think it's a funny one because I think it really depends who you are and where you sit on the list. Say I didn't play till my third year, and then played 3 games for the Pies, and then it was only last year that I actually started getting a game. So up until that point, I think you're right down the bottom of the food chain, and um, yeah, the lifestyle can be really good, but also really bad because with you're very very fortunate to have a lot of time off comparatively to other jobs, but all of that time is spent thinking or doing stuff to make you better at footy. So it doesn't actually feel like you have that much time off because even say a day off, I'm like, oh, my mates asked me to do this, and I go, nah, I better not because I got main training tomorrow or got a game on the weekend. Like I want to feel right. So I found my biggest issue was mentally burning out. Um, just going, oh my goodness, like I'd play the game a million times in my head before actually getting to the game, and then I'd be so burnt out that I'd roll in and probably not play too good because I was just sick of thinking about it, sort of thing. So, but for 99% of the time, I loved the place and I loved all the people I got to meet and things like that. I think it's probably a bit easier for me in some aspects as well because I've got no problem sort of meeting new people and just talking rubbish sort of thing. So, but if you're a bit more of a lone wolf or something like that, I can definitely see how you could probably get stuck in your head a bit, and yeah, it could be a bit challenging.
Yeah, there'd be two different sides to it. Like hanging out with the boys and the social side of it would all be amazing. But then, like you said, if you are at that sort of, I guess, lower sort of part on the list that, and you're really fighting for your spot, that it is that, although you're mates with all these people, you're fighting against none of them for a spot, and
100%.
so
And
it'd be
things
cut
like things as simple as like I feel like we're doing the same job, but the gap in pay is quite a lot. So I think that even though obviously again comparatively it's very very good, but then when I like some blokes are rolling around with over $1 million coming in and stuff like that, I'm like I'm a long way from that in my first few years as a rookie. So it's very, very different depending on where you sit on the list. Like if you know each and every week, regardless of how I play, I'm getting a game in the AFL. I think you're probably a little bit more relaxed, even though it comes definitely with more pressure. So that more pressure you have to perform and things like that. But I think it's different sorts of pressure and anxiety probably throughout. Like me, I'm worried, oh, am I going to get a contract at the end of the year? But I think the bigger guys are probably thinking, oh, if I play bad on the weekend, my name's going to be through all the paper. So I suppose there's different things.
yeah, you might not get that outside negative attention, but within yourself, you've still got your stresses and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I mean, as we mentioned, it ultimately did come to an end because of too many head knocks. But if we go back to the start, when was your first head knock? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my first one was actually playing for Aubrey Tigers. Um, and I went to get a ground ball, and my own teammate came through and cleaned me up. And it was a weird scenario. It was actually Charlie Spargo who plays for
Oh,
Melbourne.
really? Yeah.
But I went for a ground ball, and he came back, and somehow I don't know what part of him just collected me, and then I was face down in the dirt for a while, and yeah, I was completely away with the fairies. Like I apparently I like wanted to come back on and things, but they ruled me out because I couldn't stand up and things like that. And then they let me wander around to the change rooms by myself, and it was over the other side of the ground. So I wandered over there by myself, went into the change room, and apparently just fully stripped down naked and went and had a shower. But the whole netball team was in there. So, like, and then the trainers sort of were like covering me up, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, ladies, like he has no idea what he's doing," sort of thing. And
Oh,
I don't remember
no.
that bit, but so that's like, I mean, it's funny, but it's also a bit scary.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, yeah, so that I think I'm pretty sure that that was my first anyway.
Oh, shit. Yeah, like I said, it is. I mean, now I guess you can laugh about it, but that is scary. Just what it'll do to you to make you do that.
Yeah,
But
but that was probably my biggest issue along the way. Is just not so much the symptoms in terms of like headaches and things like that. It was more like how or like emotionally or how I'd change is probably was what my biggest issue was.
yeah, right. Yeah. So were they? Did they start once that first one happened? How long were you out for then?
In terms of like how long before I started playing again?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Like, yeah. Did you miss a few weeks, or was that sort of
No,
no?
I would have played the next week, so I wouldn't have missed anything because that was outside of the AFL. So then um, the restrictions and things, it was more up to how I felt and whether I felt good to go. So I thought, yeah, I got a bit of a headache and whatever, but it's not too bad. So yeah, I had no worries coming back and playing and things like that. But and I don't think I noticed any changes or anything happen, sort of thing. So, but when you get in the AFL, then the restrictions come along, and that's when they sort of put that cap on you. Whether so it might be you have to miss 1 week or you have to miss more, sort of thing. Um, but I think that that holds a trap of its own that players are more likely, less so nowadays, but more likely to not say that they've had a concussion and just go, no, I don't want to miss next week. And I was a culprit of that as well, trying to hide it to then, because I thought I was a sniff to get a game the next week, sort of thing. So, yeah, but that was the first anyway.
Yeah, it creates a dangerous sort of precedent to set to give people their own, because everyone's their own worst enemy with with injuries. I mean, I'm definitely um, guilty of that. But did they just progressively happen easier or get worse, or what was that progression like?
Did they progressively happen easier?
Yeah, did it take
Um,
less of a knock for it to happen, or did they just get worse, or what
so,
was that?
yeah, up until, and this sounds a bit gross, but up until number six, they were pretty solid. Um, so like the hits were pretty hard and usually when I wasn't expecting them. So the one that I can think of uh, that happened a couple of times was I just have to sit in the hole as the ruck and someone runs up the back of me and knees me in the back of the head. So I had a few of them and that was kind of like, you know what, I'll wear that because a knee in the back of the head was pretty solid and I felt it straight away and I was like, okay, no, something's not right, sort of thing. And that made sense to me. I'm like, I've got a hit that was quite hard and directly to my head, so that makes sense why I'm concussed. And if I could join those dots, I think it rationalized in my head a bit easier. And I go, yeah, sweet, that's no worries. But then the one round one last year, I clashed heads with someone from North Melbourne. I'm still to this day, I don't actually know who it was. Um, I watched the tape probably because I don't know the list that well, but so I clashed heads with someone and I was pretty much out before I hit the ground. And that was one where, reaction wise, I think I was the worst. Like, I was, a couple of teammates would come over to try and help me, and I was, they said that I was like scared of them. Like, I was sort of like waving my arms and I was like, I'd be like, what's going on, sort of thing. And then, but then I sort of came to quite quick and I got up and ran past him to go, like, I was sort of talking to myself going like, it's round one for a new club. I can't get subbed out here. Like, I've got to play well and I got to keep my spot. Like, this is going to be the change in my career.
Yeah.
But I played the next 3 minutes and I like fell over my own feet and I actually did some good things as well. Like, I took a mark in the goal square, but then I almost kicked it out on the full, sort of thing. So
Yep.
kicking out of defense. And then I thought I was just getting a rotation. So I saw my number up on the board and I like ran over to the number and the doctor was like right on the edge. And Liam West is his name and he's the best. And I can't say a bad word about him, but he was right at the end of right at the edge of the boundary. And then I just started yelling at him and I was like, no, Westy, fuck off. I'm fine. And all this sort of stuff. And he's like, mate, you were going down the race. Because like they got the luxury now of looking on the footage to see what's happened, and he said that he's like ruled me out before I even came off the ground because when I fell, I didn't protect myself at all. I just sort of fell to the ground. Um, and then as I'm yelling at him and stuff, he's like, "Mate, it doesn't matter what you say. We're going down to the race." So as soon as we got to the race, I just started bawling my eyes out, and that's when he was sort of saying to me like, you can tell that this isn't normal, can't you? Like, this isn't you, sort of thing. And I just like uncontrollably crying for the next however long, like the next 2 days almost. And I just couldn't get a control of my emotions.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what, like now they have, like you said, the video that doctors can look back and see what's happened, and they'll call people off and, as you said, take them down the race to do a concussion test, and they're pretty onto it now. But even the doctors, I suppose, have pressure of watching what happens, making sure they're trying to make the right call, but then obviously if they're ever going to pull someone off, that's a person down for the team, and they want the team to win. So it's that fine
Yeah,
line that
I think
they're sort of trying to toe.
yeah. Well, it depends. I can't speak for every club, but what Hawks did so well was that Liam has openly said so many times that he's like it's player first always, like player as an individual, as a person rather than an athlete, which always made me like have a bit of comfort because then I know that he's got like my best interest always at heart. So when he dragged me and I'm down in the race and I'm like, yeah, bawling my eyes out and stuff, he was there with me the whole time. Um, and then I remember my Izzy gave me a lift home, my partner, and we were like, I was holding her hand the whole way home. And then when we got home, again, I was just bawling my eyes out. And my mum and dad came over because I felt almost like ashamed a bit as well, going like, oh, how could that happen when my whole family's come to watch me and stuff like that. But my mum came over and I remember she said to Izzy, like she said, like, oh, I love you, Max, sort of thing. And then she goes, oh, and Izzy, if he starts acting like a crazy person, don't hesitate, just call the cops. Which was quite good, like, pretty funny from her.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, so that was from that one, though, from that big one, that's when the next two were really light. So the recovery from that one was quite a long time as well, probably like 6 weeks or something like that. But then the next two were the ones that I found were really problematic um, because it took me so long to get back from the first one, but I think, it took longer for me to feel like I was myself again. So I was running fine, I was lifting weights again, and all that sort of thing. But there were just little things that I noticed about myself that weren't what I was used to or what thought was normal. Like having these like anger or sadness episodes, sort of thing. Not so much anger, but more sadness. Um, or like these little things would trigger me, and I'd get these massive headaches and things. So then, anyway, it took me quite a lot to get the confidence to start playing again. And I played round 10, round 10 or something like that. I can't remember what, I think round 10 to round 15 I played, and in round 15 I got this like bump in the front of my head, like in my nose, like it clashed the back of his head into my nose. And it was not a big hit at all, but again, it was just like, it was almost like instant. And I had this like TV static in my head and like fuzziness, and the emotion just started straight away again. And that's sort of like my tell sign of like that I'm concussed, is when I'm just super emotional. And usually like I'm not emotional like that. Like I'm in touch with my emotions, I suppose, in terms of I know how I'm feeling and can express that. But when I'm uncontrollably crying, is not me at all. Um, Usually I can sort of strategically work my way through it in my head and then sort of figure out why I'm feeling sad, I suppose. But then
Yep.
those times, yeah, it was just immediately sad. And then whatever, like rest of the year, I didn't play many games, and then took all my courage to get back up and play in the AFL again in the last game of the year. That was a massive hurdle for me, because even though it seems like I played a few games of AFL and got through fine, I felt like there was this added pressure that I had to be okay. Whereas if in the VFL, if I got a bump or I didn't feel right, I could just go, no, like, fuck this, I'm not playing, sort of thing. But there's a
Yeah.
lot more riding on it in the AFL. So, yeah, it took everything I got to play that last game of the year and got through. I didn't play all that well, but it was more like a milestone to go, yeah, I jumped that hurdle of getting back. Um, and then got through pre-season, got through all of that, no worries. Get to round 6 or whatever when I got my first game of the year, and um, played a quarter and a bit, and I got the lightest brush of my career, where I got the lightest tap on the back of the head, um, as one of my teammates fell over the back of me, and like the lightest brush, but that was the worst concussion I've had in terms of I wasn't like on the day I had this headache and I had my vision was a little bit no good, but I was having these full on like this is where I was having these full on like rage episodes and like sadness episodes where like the big fella's sitting next to me on the bed, but my dog wanted to come inside and he smacked the door and I let him inside and then he immediately wanted to go back outside. And I've never been more furious in my life, like over something so trivial. But I
Yeah,
was
wow.
like almost like screaming at him and stuff, going like just blowing up. And then I think it was either the next week. So this is over like a 3 week period, but I went to the supermarket and I was holding my basket and Izzy was standing next to me and this person bumped my basket by accident. They were just standing too close to me. And I was full on like thinking that I was going to fight them in the supermarket because I was so mad, like absolutely furious, like blood boiling. And I've never felt like that about anything. Um, and then I said to Izzy, like, "Oh, you got to get me the fuck out of here! Like, I'm about to explode, and I'm gonna do something crazy, sort of thing." So then, as
Yeah,
soon as we got back out to the car, we're sitting in the car, and I start. She's like, "What's wrong?" And then I just started bawling my eyes out again. So it was like these massive, like,
it's
anger,
mood.
sadness, like these huge, massive mood swings, and they were just
Yeah.
uncontrollable, and I couldn't control them at all, and also couldn't understand why I was feeling that way, which was probably the scariest bit.
Like you said, there was a difference between the you as an athlete and you as a person, like having this pressure on the field of, not like you said earlier, like you got to be right, you got to be good to play for the team, and you don't want to let them down. But then having these separate things to off the field where it's impacting your emotions and relationships is obvious. I mean, obviously, in hindsight, or even at the time, that's so much more important than being an athlete is what you can do off the field. But so obviously, impacting your emotions, is that putting a strain on and impacting relationships in your life as well off the field?
I'm just so fortunate that I've got people around me that I know like love and care for me just purely for me, not so much about footy. Like mum and dad didn't ever care. Like mum, dad, and my sister never cared about footy, sort of thing. Like they were stoked that that's what I was doing, but they never grew up watching footy and things like that. So I always knew that I had them in my corner. But also Izzy, like she was just like a rock for me throughout that whole time. That when I was having those things, I suppose we've been together a long time, and that like we sort of had that communication where she knew that that wasn't me. So, but the part that I hated, because one, I didn't feel like myself in my own skin. That was quite scary. But I also sort of had a decision quite early after like working with the doctors and stuff that I was like, I'm going to see the concussion panel, so I'm not going to play until then. Um, I'm going to be on the long term injury list, so I'm not going to do any contacts. But I sort of went into the concussion panel going, regardless of what their outcome is, I'm not doing this shit anymore. Like,
Oh,
I
really?
can't keep messing. Like, I can't keep messing. This was more internally in my mind. I was like, I
Yep.
can't keep doing this to Izzy. I can't keep doing this to my family. Like, I can't keep doing it to me. Going like the first hit, it was like 4 weeks. I'll say it was like 3 weeks. I didn't feel myself. The next one was like 6 weeks, and then the last one was like 8 to 10 weeks where I didn't feel like I was myself. And I was like, if it keeps going that way from lighter hits, I can't. I can't keep doing that. Like that's too scary. Like, what if it's like I'm not going to be myself for 6 months next time? Like that's where everything would have started deteriorating. And then I went and saw the concussion panel, and then I was kind of like, this is where I was like, I had this made up in my mind, but then when I got there, I was kind of feeling like, oh, geez, I hope they let me play,
Oh,
because I was a bit like, oh, I wanted like, oh, I'm gonna miss it, and I like loved the lifestyle, like I said, like hanging out with my mates and also just playing footy. It's a bloody good job. So, but then I got there, and then they were like, listen, we think it's medically advised that you don't play contact sport anymore. It was in a way, it sort of it made my feelings feel a little bit validated, I suppose, in a way, going like, okay, so it's like it is as bad as I sort of felt it was,
yeah.
which which was not the result I wanted, but also the result that I probably knew was right.
Yeah, it's a massive call for you to make in yourself as well to realize that and recognize it and take the active steps to need to get that outcome because I mean it's so easy as we spoke about earlier to men especially just and in professional sport sometimes that expectation, nah, just like toughen up, you'll be right, kind of thing. And although everyone has got better with head knocks lately. I mean, to still step up and realize and recognize what was happening and sort of put your health above, being a footy player and doing all this stuff is a massive call to make.
Yeah, I suppose that I can't take the credit for that though. I suppose in a way because, like I said, Liam West always had me as a person as at front of mind. So after that last one, he kind of said, like, mate, I've reached out to the panel because we need to look into this sort of thing. Um, and I'm fairly sure he was always sort of the opinion that it was probably the best thing as well, if I didn't play anymore. Just because, yeah, like I said, it's just too small a hit to have too bad a symptom is just like the two just don't marry up well together. So, uh, yeah, in the end, I mean, even though it sucks and I hated it that that's the way that my career went, those are sort of the cards I was dealt, and I'm fine with the decision now. Like took a lot to wrap my head around, and obviously a lot of emotional conversations with the people that I love and the people in my life. But yeah, it was in the scheme of things like it wasn't. It's not the end of the world for me because I know that I've made the right choice, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess what 2024 are you? 24 to have to
25.
25 now, yeah. So to make that, yeah, to have your career ended that way, like as you said, is obviously super upsetting. But the life you have ahead of you is more important than risking that. But in saying that, do you let yourself think about that, like what complications it may or may not cause for you in the future? I know obviously a lot recently has come out around the CTE and head knocks and that sort of thing. Do you let yourself think about that, or have you had any education done around that?
Yeah, oh, a dumb amount to be honest. A dumb amount of education, and I suppose I try not to think about it too much because I suppose now I've done my bit. Like I've sort of controlled what I can control, and I've always probably been a big worrier. So I've sort of got this sort of developed over the years that they can't I can't worry what hasn't happened yet. Like that was a big one I got from my parents.
Yeah.
Um, just because, yeah, like I could spend all day thinking about that, but it may happen, it may not. Like I can't know. So, but like I said, like I've done my bit. I'm not putting myself in a position where I'm going to get any more. Um, but also, I've got quite a lot of confidence that, like, and after talking to the specialists and things like that, that I could get a hit in a year's time and have not had one anywhere near as frequently, and maybe I don't get concussed as easy anymore.
Oh,
Like just
really?
sort of letting my body recover a bit. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's not like, yeah, I think there's people far worse off than me that have had these sort of issues, but like similar, like say, oh, I'm not doing it anymore and live long, happy lives. Like I feel like in the scheme of things, I am not resentful towards footy at all either, because of how well I was treated. Um, but I also think, all the sort of older people that are coming out and saying how many problems they have, they're probably like they've got the loudest voice, but potentially are in the smallest group. So I'm not saying that the way that they were handled or the way that they kept going and, they've had all the silliness of above the shoulder injuries don't count when they'd get head knocks. Um, that was obviously the wrong way to go about it. But I want to look from the positive light that I'm going to be okay, sort of thing. So that's just the way that I've sort of tried wrap my head around it a bit.
Yeah, as you said, it's one of those things you can't worry about what hasn't happened yet, and I suppose people can take that into all different aspects of life, not just with what you're dealing with. But like you said, there's nothing saying that just because you've had a few head knocks, then you're fucked for the rest of your life, sort of thing. So that's always positive. You can live a full healthy life from now. But if there's anyone that might be experiencing something similar in sport or in life or anything, do you have any advice for them?
My biggest one that I was always talking to about is just sort of doing actually what's right for you. Um, because I did worry a lot about, oh, geez, am I letting the coaches down? Am I letting my teammates down if I don't want to do this anymore? Like, am I just sort of like taking the easy way out? Like, am I just giving up, sort of thing? Even though the decision was taken out of my hands and I was told that I can't do this anymore, it was more. Those are just the internal thoughts of me against myself of what I was thinking.
Yep.
So I think just the biggest bit of advice is that just spend some time with yourself and having to think about what is actually best for you. Because I said this, actually, Sam Mitchell actually said this pretty awesome thing to me once, where um, I said something to him. It was about essentially like, say it was like I performed bad and I was worried what the other people were going to think about me. Um, and he pretty much said that he's like, seriously, mate, like take this the right way, but no one actually fucking cares. Like, no one
Yeah.
actually cares what you've done on the weekend or how good you played or how bad. They might get around you or they might say this needs to be better, but no one actually cares.
Yeah.
So you're always in your own head about what everyone else thinks and how it's going to affect other people, but it's never as good nor as bad as it seems. Like all the cliches, but it actually rings so true that he said it quite a good way. He's like, no one fucking cares. And I'm like, sometimes it depends how you look at it, that it's like that could make you feel small. But in the situation, it was actually a bit freeing in a way that I was like, yeah, you know what? Like when someone else has had a bad game or someone else says, oh, you know what, this isn't for me anymore, I never go like, oh, I think less about this bloke. I'm actually a bit like, yeah, okay, nice. Like do whatever's good for you sort of thing. And that was, you're always your own worst enemy. So yeah, my best bit of advice is just literally do what is best for you.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take that step back, don't you? Because it works in so many different aspects of life where it's the old thing I've heard before about, everyone thinks that everyone else in the shop's looking at them and they get nervous about what they're doing and they're
Yeah,
thinking, I don't want to look stupid, but everyone in the shop's thinking the same thing and they think everyone's looking at them, but really
that's
no one's looking at anyone. So
no one's
yeah,
looking.
yeah,
I'm a real tunnel vision person when I'm out in public as well. So I'm definitely not looking at anyone. I'm a shocker for that.
oh, yeah, head down. Um, Yeah, no, that's honestly great advice that, like I said, it can be taken for people in a similar situation to you, but I reckon that can just be applied to everyone in life. That, yeah, just don't worry so much necessarily about what other people think about you, and because no one cares about you. That's in a positive way.
Exactly. Yeah, in a
Um,
positive way. I mean, the people who do care about you. But I mean, if you're just sort of
yeah,
worrying about what the guy in the stands thinks about you,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
you'll find as well that, the people that you're so worried about, like, oh, they're going to think less of me, they're actually probably, if they're in your life because they love you and they support you, they are actually probably going to be on your side. Like,
mm,
it's not often that you go, I think I'm making the right choice for me because it's the best thing for me. And someone else turns around and goes, oh, well, I hate you for that sort of thing. I don't think that happens very often.
no, exactly right. If they are truly in your life for you, then they're going to be happy either way. But um, what's now that the footy's done, what's next for you?
I'm actually on my uni placement at the moment for primary school teaching, so I'll get myself into a school somewhere and get my own little group of kids that I get to hang out with and teach a thing or two. So that's what I'm doing, and I've been doing it for 8 weeks on placement, and I'm loving it. So much
Yeah,
fun. I think that's probably one extreme to the other, but being with like a really high intensity, like very physical, very demanding AFL environment to going straight into this little prep class with a bunch of kids that like are just happy as Larry, and yeah, so like it's so good. Um, and they're all, there's spot fires everywhere always, but they keep me on my toes and they're seriously fun.
yeah, I could imagine it's a bit of a change from AFL, I suppose, but um, no, that's
They come
awesome.
up
That's
with the most random stuff.
do they? I
Yeah,
could I could absolutely imagine. I know I personally couldn't think of much worse than being a teacher, but as long as as long as you're happy with it, that's what
yeah,
you
mate,
move
it's good fun.
back to Albury. You reckon back to God's country or sticking around in Melbourne?
Uh, No, I'd definitely love to one day. Definitely love to get back there one day. Just depends when that is. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's a high demand or place, Aubrey. It's yeah. No, mate, thanks for coming on and sharing all that. It's like I said from the start, it's obviously something that's become a lot more prevalent in the news lately, and to be able to take what is obviously a personal battle and share personal things around, emotions and that things are going on behind closed doors, I think sheds a lot of light on stuff that happens in professional sport and in other people's lives as well. So to be able to come on and share all that side of things is been awesome, and I think we're able to take a lot away from it.
No, cheers. Appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Cheers. Well, there we go. That was Max Lynch, former AFL player that had to retire because of too many head knocks. But you can see or hear his attitude with the whole situation is quite remarkable with going through something pretty scary at a young age. So for him to be able to have the approach to it that he does is quite remarkable. He's able to realize and recognize that him as a person is more important than what he is as an athlete or what he was, and that the relationships off the field and the way he's feeling off the field is more important than being able to go out there and be on TV or be seen by people as a bit of a celebrity as AFL players are. That not that he would ever feel that way, but some people can get caught up in that lifestyle, and for him to recognise that him as a person is more important is a great thing. So I thought that was really insightful. As I said, very brave to come on and share that story. It's something being quite vulnerable of what goes on behind doors and the way that it has affected him. But as he said, the loved ones that stuck by him and the ones that really do care are the only they want him to retire, or they want him to worry more about him off the field and not put pressure on him to continue. So, no, I thought that was a great chat, and thanks again to Max for sharing that. But if this episode or anything in life has raised some adverse feelings for you, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Please reach out to their services if you need. Remember to check in on your mates and check in on each other, and that it ain't weak to speak. But that's it for this episode of Chats from a Chair. Make sure you subscribe where you're listening and check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast. But once you've done all that, come back for another episode. Thanks.